The night a 21-year-old ended the Roman Empire forever. From a 1,000-year empire crumbling in a single night, to a Hungarian engineer who switched sides and changed everything, to an emperor who chose death over surrender, and whose body was never found. This is the fall of Constantinople explained. A siege so devastating that historians still can't believe it worked. 'Cause here's what they never tell you in school. The walls of Constantinople had never been breached. Not once, in 1,000 years. They had survived 23 separate sieges, 23 armies who all showed up, looked at those walls, and went home. The guy who finally broke through was 21 years old. But let's rewind. To understand why this moment was so impossible, you gotta understand what Constantinople actually was. This wasn't just a city. This was the city. The capital of the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, the direct continuation of the Roman Empire. That history class kept telling you fell in 476 AD. It didn't. Half of it kept going for another 1,000 years, right here in this one city, behind these walls. Every textbook stops the Roman Empire clock at 476 and calls it a day, and every textbook is wrong. And these walls were not regular walls. The Theodosian walls were a triple-layered defensive system, a moat, an outer wall, and an inner wall that reached 60 feet high, stretching 4 miles across the only land approach to the city. Engineers today still study them. They were the most sophisticated defensive structure the ancient world ever built. And for 1,000 years, they worked. 23 armies tried. 23 armies failed. Arabs, Bulgars, Rus, Persians, Viking mercenaries fighting for all kinds of reasons, all of them gone. So when the Ottoman Empire started massing troops outside Constantinople in the spring of 1453, the Byzantines were scared. Of course they were. But they also had a little voice in the back of their heads saying, "Those walls have never been broken. We've done this before. We'll do it again." That voice was wrong. And the reason it was wrong came in 3 flavors. Number 1, the city was already dying from the inside. Number 2, a man named Orban had just switched sides. And number 3, the guy leading the attack was not a normal 21-year-old. Not even close. Let's start with the city itself. Constantinople at its peak had 400,000 people. The heart of the Byzantine world. At the crossroads of Europe and Asia, it controlled trade, religion, and culture across half the known world. By 1453, it had roughly 50,000 people left. The population had collapsed. The treasury was empty. The Byzantine Empire, which had once stretched across Greece, Turkey, Bulgaria, Egypt, and chunks of Italy, had been shrinking for 200 years straight. Wars, plagues, the Crusades carving pieces off of it, internal civil wars that never seemed to stop. By the time the Ottomans arrived, the empire was basically just the city itself, surrounded on all sides by Ottoman territory. The defenders could muster maybe 7,000 soldiers to protect 4 miles of wall. 7,000, against what was coming. Which brings us to number 2, Orban. Orban was a Hungarian engineer, and he was a genius. He'd spent his career designing artillery, and he'd figured something out that nobody had cracked before. He could cast a cannon bigger than anyone had ever attempted. A cannon so massive it could fire a 1,200-pound stone ball and reduce a medieval wall to rubble in minutes. He went to Constantinople first. He offered his services to Emperor Constantine XI directly, said, "I can build weapons that will end any siege before it starts. Give me the resources." Constantine XI wanted to say yes, but the treasury was empty, remember? The Byzantines couldn't pay him. So Orban said, "All right, thanks for nothing," crossed the line and walked straight to the Ottomans. Mehmed paid him, full rate, immediately. Orban built him a cannon 27 feet long. To move it, they needed 60 oxen and 200 men. When they test-fired it for the first time outside Adrianople, people heard the explosion from a mile away and thought an earthquake had hit. The blast knocked people off their feet. The gun was so powerful that the barrel needed several hours to cool down between shots, which meant they could only fire it 7 times per day. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem. And now we need to talk about the man who hired Orban. Because Sultan Mehmed II is the part of this story that doesn't make sense until you look closely. 21 years old. Technically his second time being Sultan, his father Murad II had retired and handed him the throne at age 12, then taken it back 2 years later because the empire nearly fell apart while the boy was in charge. That's not a great start. The Ottoman nobles thought Mehmed was too young, too unstable, too obsessed with books and ideas. He spoke 6 languages by the time he was a teenager. He read ancient Greek philosophers. He collected manuscripts. His own advisors dismissed him right up until the moment they couldn't anymore. But here's what they missed. Mehmed had been dreaming about Constantinople since he was a child, not in a romantic, faraway way. In a specific, obsessive, I have been studying the maps, and I am going to solve this problem kind of way. He read every account of every previous siege. He knew exactly why they all failed. He understood the walls better than most Byzantine generals did. He knew about Orban before Orban came to him. He sent scouts to find him. And the moment he became Sultan for the second time in 1451, the first thing he did, before any other military campaign, was start planning this. He was 21 years old. He'd been preparing for this moment for a decade inside his head. But here's the thing. Constantinople still believed it could survive. The siege began on April 6, 1453. Between 140,000 and 200,000 Ottoman troops, sources disagree on the exact number, but historians agree it was massive, surrounded the city by land and by sea. The Byzantine defenders, all 7,000 of them, were stretched thin across 4 miles of wall. They were outnumbered roughly 25 to 1. By any military logic, this should have been over in a week. It wasn't. 'Cause of Giovanni Giustiniani. Giustiniani was a Genoese mercenary, a professional soldier, and he was extraordinary. He'd come to Constantinople with 700 trained fighters, some of the best soldiers money could buy, because he believed in the city. Or maybe because Constantine had promised him the island of Lemnos if he helped save it. Either way, this man was built for exactly this situation. He organized the defenders into rotating shifts. He identified the weakest points along the walls and concentrated resources there. He drilled exhausted civilian volunteers until they could patch a breached wall section in the dark. And every single time Orban's cannons blasted a hole in the Theodosian walls, which was 7 times a day, Giustiniani had his men out there before dawn with rubble and timber, patching it back up. Blast, patch, blast, patch. 53 days of this. Mehmed tried a naval assault. The Byzantines had stretched a massive iron chain across the Golden Horn, the inlet protecting the city's harbor, and the Ottoman fleet couldn't break it. The attack failed. Mehmed tried tunneling under the walls. The Byzantines had a Greek engineer who could detect tunnel vibrations by pressing a bowl of water against the ground. When the water rippled in the wrong pattern, they knew where to dig a counter-tunnel and collapse it. Every Ottoman tunnel got neutralized. He sent wave after wave of infantry up ladders against the outer walls. They were pushed back every time. 53 days, 7,000 defenders. Holding. Remember that detail about Giustiniani. It matters in about 3 minutes, because this is where things get interesting. After 53 days of siege, something didn't break in the wall. Something broke in the defense. The night of May 28, 1453. Constantine XI gathered his commanders for what everyone in that room knew might be the last council of the Byzantine Empire. He thanked them. He said he was sorry his empire had come to this. He asked them to fight one more day. And in the account written by his personal secretary, Georgios Frances, the only Byzantine who left a detailed eyewitness record of what happened, he told them, "I have decided to die here with you." And then they all embraced and went to their positions on the wall. At around 1 in the morning on May 29th, Mehmed unleashed the final assault. Every cannon, every infantry regiment, every naval unit at once. The noise was indescribable. Francis, watching from a tower, wrote that the earth seemed to shake. The Ottoman troops came in waves deliberately. Fresh soldiers behind exhausted soldiers. Relentless pressure designed to grind the defenders down. Giustiniani was everywhere on the wall, directing, shouting, holding the line. And then he got hit. A crossbow bolt. Some accounts say a cannon fragment pierced his armor and wounded him badly. And in the chaos of the pre-dawn assault, Giustiniani asked to be carried off the wall. What happened next, historians have argued about for 500 years. Did he abandon his post? Did he have a choice? We know Constantine himself begged him to stay. We know Giustiniani said he couldn't. We know his men saw their commander being carried away bleeding. And we know that the moment the Genoese soldiers saw that, something cracked in the defense. The breach happened at the Blachernae section, the northernmost stretch of wall, the one part of the perimeter that wasn't the full triple-layered Theodosian system. A small group of Ottoman soldiers found a postern gate, a small service door built into the outer wall, that had been left unlocked in the chaos. Some accounts say the lock was simply never reset after a night patrol came back through. Others say the door had been damaged by cannon fire. Either way, Ottoman soldiers were suddenly inside the walls, and then it was over. Cool. So we're doing this then. Constantine knew immediately what had happened. His commanders were already fleeing. The Ottoman soldiers inside were opening the main gates from the inside. And this is the part that they never teach you. Constantine XI took off his imperial regalia, the crown, the purple robes, the symbols that represented a direct line of inheritance stretching back over 1,000 years to the first Roman emperors. He threw them on the ground, grabbed a sword, and charged directly into the Ottoman soldiers. He was last seen fighting hand-to-hand in the street. His body was never found. The last emperor of the Roman Empire died anonymously in a crowd, sword in hand, refusing to surrender. Some historians think he was cut down in the chaos and buried in an unmarked grave. Some think the Ottomans recognized him and buried him with honors. Some say he escaped. No one knows. The man who held the oldest title in the Western world vanished without a trace on May 29th, 1453. By dawn, Mehmed II rode into the city on a white horse, 21 years old. He walked into the Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in the Christian world, the building that defined Byzantine civilization for 900 years, and he stood there in silence. Then he ordered it converted into a mosque. The Byzantine Empire was over, 1,123 years after it began, ended in a single night by a man who wasn't old enough to rent a car. Spoiler alert, the Roman Empire had just finally died, about 1,000 years later than everyone thought. And I want to stop right here and ask you something, because historians have been fighting about this for centuries, and I genuinely don't have a clean answer. Was Mehmed II one of the greatest military minds in history? Or did he just get lucky? Lucky that Orban showed up when he did. Lucky that Giustiniani got wounded on the exact night of the final assault. Lucky that someone left a door unlocked. Is this a story of once-in-a-generation genius? Or is this a story of circumstance handing a young man the right moment at the right time? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think, because I've read every angle on this and I still go back and forth. Because here's the thing about Mehmed. You could argue luck, but he was the one who paid Orban when nobody else would. He was the one who spent months positioning a naval fleet overland, literally having ships dragged across a hill on greased logs to bypass the Byzantine chain guarding the harbor. When that chain stopped his fleet, he didn't give up. He went around it, in the most insane way possible. That's not luck. That's obsession converted into engineering. He went on to conquer Greece, Serbia, Bosnia, parts of Italy. He was pushing toward Rome, trying to complete what he called the restoration of the old Roman Empire under Ottoman rule. He was stopped only by his own death in 1481 at age 49. Historians argue that if Mehmed had lived to 60, he would have taken Rome itself. The Roman Empire might have literally been restored, just under a different flag. And the ripple effects of what happened in Constantinople in 1453 went everywhere. Greek scholars fleeing the city carried ancient manuscripts west into Italy, texts by Plato, Aristotle, Archimedes that had survived only in Byzantine libraries. Those manuscripts helped fuel the Italian Renaissance, the Renaissance that gave Europe the printing press, the scientific revolution, and the age of exploration. The fall of Constantinople didn't just end an empire, it accidentally helped start the modern world. The city Mehmed conquered is today called Istanbul. The Hagia Sophia, converted to a mosque in 1453, turned into a museum in 1935, converted back into a mosque in 2020, still stands. The Theodosian walls still stand. You can walk along them. You can see the patches from Giustiniani's night repairs, the rubble they hauled before dawn to hold back the end of an era. And when you stand there, you realize those walls didn't fall because they were weak. They'd held for 1,000 years. They fell because one 21-year-old refused to believe they were unbreakable. And no one had ever refused that hard before. Constantine XI died on those walls on May 29, 1453. No ceremony, no body, no final moment of imperial dignity. Just a man in the street with a sword, knowing exactly what was happening and choosing to face it anyway. When the news reached the Byzantine refugees who'd escaped to Italy, they sat in silence. Because they understood that what had just ended wasn't a city and wasn't an empire. It was 1,000 years of continuity, a world that had kept existing so long that people stopped believing it could stop. And that silence is still there. If you go to Istanbul and stand in the Hagia Sophia, in the size of the room, in the weight of everything that happened in it, there's 1,000 years of history in those walls, and you can feel it. So I'll ask you one more time. Genius or luck? Was Mehmed the greatest military commander of the medieval world? Or did circumstance hand him a door that someone forgot to lock? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. And if you thought this was wild, wait until you hear about the crusade that was supposed to rescue Constantinople 100 years earlier. Except they never made it, because they got distracted and decided to sack the wrong city instead. Christians attacking the biggest Christian city in the world, and getting away with it.